Welcome friends. Let us continue our discussion on the topic Pramanas. Vyapti is a relation of coexistence of Hetu and Sadhya, but coexistence is not itself determination of Vyapti relation. The relation must be unconditional or necessary, that is, it must be free from any adventitious circumstances. For instance, the relation of Vyapti in wherever there is smoke, there is fire is unconditional because there is no adventitious circumstances present in the relation. In the presence of smoke, fire is unconditionally and invariably present. But if this relation is transposed and the relation had in the form where there is fire, there is smoke, it will be seen that there is no necessity of this relation, because it is not the case that in the presence of fire, smoke necessarily be present. The presence of smoke in fire is due to an adventitious circumstance, that is wet fuel. The relation between fire and smoke is thus a conditional relation which cannot serve as the ground of inference. A cause is defined as an unconditional and invariable antecedent of an effect. The effect is the unconditional and invariable consequent of a cause. The same cause produces the same effect, and the same effect is produced by the same cause. Plurality of causes is ruled out. The first essential characteristic of a cause is its antecedence, the fact that it should precede the effect. The second is its invariability. It must invariably precede the effect. The third is its necessity and unconditionality. It must unconditionally precede the effect. Two kinds of inference. The most important division of inference is into Swarthanumana, that is inference for one's own sake, and Pararthanumana, that is inference for the sake of another. This is a distinction between the process of inference as it takes place in one's own mind and its outer expression for the purpose of convincing others. The former does not require the formulation of inference into a syllogistic argument, the latter does. The fully expressed syllogism has 5 members. The following is the 5-membered syllogism illustrated. Pradigna, the statement to be proved. Example, the hill has fire. Hetu or reason. Example, because the hill has smoke. Udaharana, the universal preposition with example. Example, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. For example, kitchen. Upanaya, the application. The hill has smoke which is invariably concomitant with fire. Nigamana, the conclusion. Example, the hill has fire. Another mode of classification of Anumana is Anvaya Vyatireki. Here, the Hetu is both co-present and co-absent with the Sadhya. Second is Kevalanvayi. It is that in which Hetu is only co-present with the Sadhya. Third, Kevala Vyatireki. It is that in which the Hetu is co-absent alone. Another classification of inference is into Purvavat, Sheshavat and Samanyato Drishta. An inference is Purvavat when it proceeds from a perceived cause to an unperceived effect. Example, the inference of rain from the perception of dark clouds. An inference is Sheshavat when it goes from a perceived effect to an unperceived cause. Example, when we infer on the perception of a river in flood that it should have rained in some part of the country. Samanyato Drishta. Anumana consists in the apprehension of an imperceptible object, for example, the movement of earth on the basis of the perception of a mark which is known to be not causally related to it. For example, the different position of the sun in the sky. The inference is based on non-causal uniformity. Comparison or Upamana. Upamana is one among the 4 means of valid knowledge accepted by the Nyaya system. According to Nyaya, the knowledge resulting from the Upamana is known as Upamiti. It is knowledge of the resemblance of one thing to another, or it is our knowledge of the relation between a name and things so named, or between a word and its denotation. Comparison or Upamana is the means by which we gain the knowledge of a thing from its similarity to another thing previously well known. We get such kind of knowledge when we are told by trustworthy or authoritative person that a particular word denotes a class of objects of a certain description, and on the basis of the already given description, we apply the word to some object or objects which is in agreement with that description, although we might not have previous knowledge of them. The usual example given is as follows. A person who very well knows the animal called the cow is told by a person that there is a kind of animal living in the forest which resembles the cow and is called Gavaya. He then happens to go to the forest and actually perceive an animal which is there to unknown to him, but which resembles the cow. He then recalls the information regarding this animal he had received before, and he now knows that this is the animal called Gavaya. This knowledge is result of comparison. Dr. L. S. Tebbing in his book Modern Introduction to Logic explained another example. Suppose one does not know what saxophone means. He may be told by a musician that a saxophone is a musical instrument, something like a U-shaped trumpet. Later, on seeing saxophone, if he is able to give its name, it will be clear that he understands what saxophone means. So, Upamana is a way of knowing the denotation of words or the relation between names and the objects denoted by them. The basis of Upamana knowledge are a given description of the objects to be known and perception of their similarity to the well known object mentioned in the description. Though Nyayikas accepted Upamana or comparison as an independent Pramana, many other systems of Indian philosophy rejected the independent status of this Pramana. For Charvakas, Upamana is not a Pramana at all, because it cannot give any true knowledge about the denotation of words. The Buddhists do not give a separate place to comparison, but placed it under perception and testimony. Vaisesika and Sankhya system describe Upamana as a form of inference. Similarly, the Jains consider Upamana as recognition. But the Mimamsakas and the Vedadins accepted Upamana as a separate source of knowledge, but their description of Upamana is different from that of the Nyayikas. Shabda or testimony. Nyaya admits verbal testimony as an independent Pramana, but Vaisesika does not recognize it as a Pramana. Shabda literally means verbal knowledge. It is the knowledge of something derived from words or sentences. But all verbal knowledge is not valid. Nyaya defines Shabda as a statement of a trustworthy person, Aptavakya, and consists in understanding its meaning. A person is trustworthy if he knows the truth and conveys it correctly for the guidance of other people. Shabda or verbal testimony as a means of valid knowledge consists in grasping the meaning of the statement of a trustworthy person. Testimony is of two kinds, Vedic or scriptural or Vaidika, and secular or Alaukika. The Vedas consist of statements of God, and therefore their testimony is valid. So, scriptural or Vedic testimony is valid. So, scriptural or Vedic testimony is perfect and infallible, but secular or Laukika words are valid only if they are the utterances of the trustworthy person. According to another classification, there are two kinds of Shabda, one in connection with perceptible objects Drishtata and another in connection with imperceptible objects Adrishtata. Under perceptible objects include the trustworthy assertions of saints, ordinary persons, and the scriptures in so far as they include the perceptible objects of the world. The evidences given by witnesses in the law courts is an example for the Drishtata. The imperceptible include all the trustworthy assertions of ordinary persons, saints and the scriptures insofar as they deal with supersensible realities. Saints, instructions about virtue and vice, scriptural descriptions on God, freedom, self, etc. and scientific assertions about atoms, electrons, etc. are examples of adrishtada. The above described two classifications of Shabda points to the fact that testimony must always be personal. It may be based on the words of some trustworthy ordinary person, human or divine. The Nyayikas do not give any difference among the trustworthy statements of ordinary person, a saint and the scriptures. So, Shabda or verbal testimony give knowledge of something through the understanding of the meaning sentences either spoken or written by some trustworthy person. Now, the question arises is what a sentence and how does it become intelligible? A sentence is a group of pada or words arranged in a particular way. Each word has its own meaning and has a fixed relation to some object. So, the words works as symbols. The capacity of words to stand for their respective objects is what is known as the potential or Shakti, and this Shakti is given by God. Any combination of words does not give us a meaningful sentence. A meaningful sentence should conform to four conditions. They are Ashanga, Yogyada, Sannidhi and Tatparya. Ashanga or expectancy is the mutual need that the words of a sentence have for one another in order to convey a complete sense. Yogyada or mutual fitness is fulfilled when the meaning of a sentence is not contradicted between its combined words. Sannidhi stands for the proximity between the different words of a sentence. The combined words must be continuous with one another in time or space. Tatparya stands for the intended meaning of a sentence. To understand the meaning of a sentence, one must consider the intention of the writer or the speaker. Apavarga or liberation. The main objective of almost all systems of Indian philosophy is the attainment of liberation or moksha for the Atman or individual self. Nyaya Vaisesika presented a philosophy of life and tried to help individual selves in their journey towards truth and freedom. The Nyaya thinkers believe that there are different selves and the self is indestructible, eternal and also infinite because it is not limited by time and space. Knowledge or consciousness belongs to the self as an attribute, but it is not an essential and inseparable attribute of it. All cognitions arise in the self when it is related to the mind and the mind is related to the senses and the senses come in contact with the external world. All qualities of the self are adventitious or accidental qualities, not essential qualities. These qualities are provided by the physical body with which the self is associated for the time being. So, release or liberation does not bring to the soul any experience of pleasure or happiness. If absolute freedom from pain is the goal, this can be gained only when there is no happiness also, because pain and pleasure are the two sides of the same coin. Wisdom lies in avoiding both and reaching a condition characterized by lasting place. The Nyaya Vaisesika view of liberation is called Apavarga. For them, liberation is not positive bliss, but it is really a restart from pain and pleasure. The knowledge, pain, pleasure, volition, etc. are not essential attributes of the self. They are accidental qualities of the self. At the state of release, the self is devoid of all these qualities and stands in its base purity. We are in bondage because we have a wrong knowledge of the self. Evil is a result of ignorance. Through right knowledge, one can attain moksha. Right knowledge alone will remove the ignorance relating to the self. Just like the Upanishads, Nyaya Vaisesika system considered jnana as a means to attain moksha or apavarga. This system does not believe in Jivan Mukti. There is resemblance between Buddhist conception of nirvana and Nyaya system of apavarga. Both stress the importance of non-attachment and liberation from all attributes and qualities. Both believe that moksha is a state in which one is free from all experiences. Concept of God in Nyaya Vaisesika system. In Gautama's Nyaya Sutra, one can find explicit references of God. Nyaya Vaisesika school connects concept of God with the doctrine of liberation. They believe that individual self can attain liberation only by the grace of God. According to Nyaya Vaisesika school, God is all-powerful being who initiates the process of evolution of this world. He belongs to the class of Atman. He is the Paramatman and is distinct from the Jivatman or the individual self. The movement of the atoms is given by God. He is the first efficient cause of the universe and not its material cause. His knowledge is eternal and perfect. He is responsible for the creation, maintenance and destruction of this world. He is the builder of this ordered universe. He destroys the world only to create it again. God is the designer of the whole universe and He designs it according to the past karma of the human beings who lives in the world in a particular time. God is one, infinite and eternal and beyond space and time. Minds and souls do not limit Him. God is the supreme guiding power of the universe. He enjoys perfect freedom from attachment. He possesses right knowledge of all things and events, so He is omniscient. He has eternal consciousness and eternal consciousness is an inseparable attribute of God. God directs actions of all living beings, so no creature is absolutely free in this world. God is the moral governor of the world of living creatures. God's existence is established only through inference and not through revelation. Certain proofs are given by Nyaya Vaisesika system for the existence of God, which includes almost all the proofs given by Western thinkers for the existence of God. The causal argument. The causal argument is the argument from effect to cause. The world is an effect, so naturally there must have an efficient cause. The order, regularity, design, etc. comes from God. We find that all composite objects such as table, chair, etc. has some maker. In this world, we find innumerable natural objects like mountains, seas, sun, moon, stars, etc., which are made of parts or they must be the effect of some cause. All these must have been constructed by some supreme intelligent power or there must be an intelligent cause for all these effects. That intelligent power or cause is God. Only God can combine the atoms and make the universe. One can find harmony and planning in the universe. They are arranged by a divine architect. God is posterized as an architect and moral governor of this universe. So, God exists. The argument from Adrishta. Argument from Adrishta is another proof given for the existence of God. Nyaya Vaisesika thinkers believe that Adrishta is the stock of merits and demerits resulting from the good and bad karmas of an individual. The Adrishta in itself is unconscious and it is not an intelligent power. It cannot combine the past actions and its effects. To control this, an intelligent guide is necessary. The individual souls cannot be the director knowledge of its destiny. So, God, who is all powerful, omniscient, etc., only can become the director of Adrishta. Therefore, God should exist. The argument from the authoritativeness of the scriptures. Another proof of God's existence is based on authority of the Vedas. The Vedas are valid and authoritative validity of the Vedas depends upon the author. Human beings are imperfect, so they do not have knowledge of the superhuman realities and the transcendent principles prescribed in the Vedas. So, human beings cannot be the author of the Vedas. The author of the Vedas can have perfect knowledge of the past, present and future. It is believed that God has perfect knowledge of the past, present and future. So, God is the creator of the Vedas and Vedas derives its validity from him. Again, the existence of God has been accepted by the Vedas. It is pointed out that Vedas are reliable because they have been made by God. So, what the Vedas says must be correct and accepted. Critics point out that these arguments are circular. The ultimate proof for God's existence is one's own experience, but there are people who do not have personal experience. They can depend only on Vedic utterances, which are really divine utterances or testimony or Shruti. God is only the efficient cause and not the material cause of the universe. Besides God, the four kinds of atoms and human souls are also real and eternal. Souls and atoms are independent of God. God only combines the four kinds of atoms in time and space and gives suitable bodies to the individual souls and places them in the world on the basis of their past karmas. God is only an architect and moral governor who gives justice to the living being in accordance with their karmas. Nyaya Vaisesika thinkers are followers of Shaivism. They identified God with Lord Shiva. To summarize, the doctrine of Upamana is the principal doctrine in Nyaya system. Inferential knowledge is knowledge that results through the instrumentation of some other knowledge. Two factors that are necessary in inferential knowledge are Vyapti-jnana and Pakshadharma-jnana Vyapti is a relation of coexistence of Hetu and Sadhya. The fully expressed syllogism has 5 members. Comparison is the means by which we gain the knowledge of a thing from its similarity to another thing previously known. Nyaya admits verbal testimony as an independent pramana. The Nyaya Vaisesika view of liberation is called apavarga. Release does not bring to the soul any experience of pleasure or happiness. Through right knowledge, one can attain moksha. This system does not believe in Jivan Mukti. Nyaya Vaisesika school connects concept of God with the doctrine of liberation. They believe that individual self can attain liberation only by the grace of God. According to Nyaya Vaisesika school, God is all powerful being who initiates the process of evolution of this world. He belongs to the class of Atman. He is the Paramatman and is distinct from the Jivatman or the individual self. Now, there are few assignments for you to work out. Number 1, explain the notion of liberation in Nyaya Vaisesika system. Number 2, explain Upamana. Number 3, Shabda is a means of valid knowledge in Nyaya system. Explain. Number 4, what is comparison? Number 5, explain the causal arguments for the existence of God. Number 6, explain the 4 possible conditions for making a meaningful sentence. There are few books for your reference. Number 1, Critical Survey of Indian Philosophy, C.D. Sharma, Motilal Banarjee Publishers, 2009. Number 2, Indian Philosophy, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, Oxford University Press, 1923. Number 3, Spirit of Indian Philosophy, Banarjee, Curzon Press, 1975. Number 4, Structural Depths of Indian Philosophy, P.T. Raju, South Asian Publishers, New Delhi, 1985. Number 5, Outlines of Indian Philosophy, M. Hiriyanna, Motilal Banarjee Publishers, 1993. We are concluding our discussion on Nyaya Pramanas here. We will meet again in another session with a new topic on philosophy. Thank you.